Welcome to my algebra class. We're on chapter 7, section 1. We're working with ratio and rate. Ratio is a comparison of two like units. If the units are not the same, then you need to make sure they are the same when you compare the ratios. The first example, write 8 to 5 two other ways as a ratio. We can write it using the word 2. We can write it with a colon, 8 to 5. And we can also write it as a fraction, 8 over 5. The following in the second part are ratios, and we just need to simplify them. So 36 to 60, we could divide by 6 and get 6 to 10, and that can be simplified further. Divide by 2, so we get 3 to 5. The second one, 15x to 40x, if we write it as a fraction, we can divide by 5 and we get 3 over 8, and the x's cancel out. So the ratio is 3 to 8 in simplest form. C is a ratio. We're simplifying the number parts. Coefficients, we get 4 and 3. The x cancels out, leaving us an x, and a y cancels out, leaving us a y. So the ratio is 4x to 3y. Example D, the units are not the same, so we need to convert them to same units, and generally it's easier to convert the larger unit to the smaller. Since there's 60 minutes in an hour, then we have 2 hours. That's 120 minutes to 40 minutes. So our ratio is 3 to 1. And ratios are always two numbers, so we don't change that to 3. And the second example is 6 inches to 3 feet. We'll change the feet to inches, so it would be 6 inches. Every foot has 12 inches over 36 inches. So that would be 1 to 6. And the last kind of problem we're going to see are ratio word problems, which occur frequently. They said the ratio of the alfalfa to the wheat is 3 to 5, and the total acres is 160. So if I take the ratio 3 and 5, if I add those, if those were acres, 3 acres and 5 acres doesn't add up to 160. So there is a common factor that's been canceled out, just as we were canceling back here. So if I let x represent the common factor, then 3x is the number of acres of alfalfa, since that was mentioned first, and 5x equals the number of acres of wheat. And together, the 3x and the 5x have to total 160 acres. So if I add those together, I get 8x equals 160. Divide by 8, and I get x equals 20. So 20 was the common factor, and then I plug that back in up here. 3 times 20, 3x, there was 60 acres of alfalfa, and 5 times 20 equals 100 acres of wheat. And that works because that adds up to 160 total. That concludes the explanation for Chapter 7, Section 1. You need to get your paper headed, and the title's 289 written 1 to 36, and 291 problems 1 to 10. So your book should be at 289, and we're going to start with number 2. The directions are write each ratio in the simplest form. So 2 is 55 to 33. I'm just going to leave it in that form. So we can divide both parts by 11, so we get 5 to 3. Number 4 is 6y to 9y. We can divide out the y's and then we can also divide 6 and 9 by 3. So 6 goes into, 3 goes into 6, 2, and 3 goes into 9, 3. So our ratio is 2 to 3 because the y's canceled out. Number 6 is in fraction form. Just copy it down as it is. And cancel where we can. 9 goes into 27, 3. And 9 goes into 45, 5. We can take out 2 m's and 2 m's. That leaves us 3 m's. So the ratio is 3m cubed over 5. Problem number 8, we have 72 rs to the 5th over 12 r squared s squared. 12 goes into 12 once and into 72, 6. We can cancel out an r, leaving us an r. On the bottom, we can cancel out 2 s's and 2 s's from s to the 5th, leaving us s cubed. So our ratio is 6s cubed over r. Problem 10. Write each ratio in simplest form. We have 4 hours to 45 minutes. So we're going to change the 4 hours to minutes. That's 4 times 60 would be 240 minutes over 45 minutes. We could divide by 5 and we get 4, 48, and 9. And we could divide by 3 and we get 16 over 3 is our ratio, or 16 to 3. Problem number 12, we have 18 centimeters over 1.8 centimeters. So that's 18 centimeters, and meters, there's 100 centimeters in a meter, so we need to move it over 2. Change meters to centimeters, 180 centimeters. So we can cancel, and it's going to be 1 to 10. Problem number 14, we have 9 days over 3 weeks. So that would be 9 days over, or 7 days to a week. So 7 times 3 is 21 days. And that would simplify dividing by 3, 3/7. So our ratio is 3 to 7. Problem 16, we have 200 centimeters over 8 kilometers. If I want to change kilometers to centimeters, we would have to move it 3 places to get it to meters and 2 more to get it to centimeters. So that's 5 to the right, so we have to add on 5 zeros. So if I cancel those out, and then it'd be 1 over 4,000. So our ratio is 1 over 4,000. Problem number 20, 2 kilograms over 90 grams. Change kilograms to grams, we have to move it 3 places to the right, so we would have to add on 3 zeros, where there's 1,000 grams in a kilogram, over 90. We can cross out the zeros, so it's going to be 200 to 9. Problem 22. The student-teacher ratio in a school with 2,592 students and 144 teachers. So they said students to teachers, so we put 2,592 over 144. Well, 144 actually goes into 2,592 18 times, so it's 18 to 1. 24, the ratio of raisins to nuts in a mixture containing 3 cups of raisins and 1 1/4 cups nuts. So I have 3 raisins, 3 cups of raisins, and 1 1/4 cups of nuts. We can't leave it like that, so that's 3 over 5/4, which is the same as 3 times. It's dividing by 5/4, so we change it to multiplying by 4/5. So that's going to come out 12 to 5. 26, Part A. The ratio of fiction books to nonfiction. When we have 1,050 fiction and 1,890 nonfiction. So it's fiction, which is 1,050, to nonfiction, which is 1,890. So we drop the end zeros and divide by 3 since they're both odd. So 3 goes in 105 35 times, and 3 goes in 189 63. And then 7 goes into 35.5 and into 63.9, so our ratio is 5/9. And then Part B, they want the ratio of nonfiction to fiction, so that would just be flipping the fraction around, so it'd be 9 to 5. Numbers 28 through 30, find the ratio A of the perimeters and then the areas of each part. So we have 2 parts to these answers, so please make sure you do both parts. 28, we want the ratio of the perimeters first. And it's a rectangle with length 12 and a perimeter of 30. And the second one has a length of 10 and a perimeter of 30. So the ratio of the perimeters would be 30 to 30, which would be 1 to 1. And then Part B, the areas. Well, we have to find the widths to get the areas. So if the perimeter is 30, half the perimeter would equal 15. So if I have 12 for this rectangle, then its width would be 3. And half of this perimeter is 15. So if this is 10, this must be 5, half the perimeter. So the area of the first one is 12 times 3. And the area of the second one is 10 times 5. So that would be 36 to 50. Divide both of these by 2. We get 18 to 25, and that's in lowest terms. So our ratio of the areas would be 18 to 25. And 30, we have a square with sides 24. And we have another square with sides 2 yards. And 2 yards would be, 1 yard has 36 inches, so 2 yards would have 72. This might be easier if we just change them to feet. So if we go back to the square with 24 inches, 12 inches make a foot, so it's 2 feet by 2 feet. And the other rectangle square is 2 yards, so each yard has 3 feet, so this would be 6 feet by 6 feet. So first the perimeters. Perimeter of the first square would be 4 2s, which would be 8 feet. And the perimeter of the second one would be 4 times 6, or 24 feet. So that simplifies to 1 to 3. And that's the ratio of the perimeters. And the areas, part B, the area of the first one would be 2 feet times 2 feet, which would be 4 feet squared. And the area of the second would be 6 times 6, which is 36. And that simplifies to 1/9. Problem 32. Find the ratio of x to y determined by each equation. Hint, in exercises 37 through 45, collect the x terms on one side and the y terms on the other. So 32, we have 7x equals 4y. And we want the ratio of x to y, so we need to get the y's on one side with the x. So now I have 7x over y equals 4. Now I get rid of the 7, I divide both sides by 7. Now I have x over y equals 4 over 7. Another way of doing this, if I have 7x equals 4y, I could swing the y over here and I could swing the 7 over there without going through those steps. So it'd be x over y equals 4 over 7. Either way works. And 34, I have 10x equals 26y. So the y is going to go over here and the 10 is going to go over here. So it's going to be x over y equals 26 over 10. And dividing both sides by y and then by 10, which simplifies to 13/5. And the last one on this page, 36, I have 3x equals ky. I want the ratio of x to y, so I swing the y over here and a 3 over here. So x over y equals k over 3. On page 291, we're doing ratio word problems. So number 2, find two numbers in the ratio of 3 to 7 whose sum is 50. If I add 3 plus 7, that does not make 50, so the common ratio factor's been taken out, or simplified. X equals the common factor. So 3x equals one number, and 7x equals other number. Together their sum, 3x plus 7x, has to equal 50. So that's 10x equals 50. Divide by 10. So the common ratio is 5. So the first number is 3 times 5, which is 15. And the second number is 7 times 5, which is 35. So it's 15 and 35. And they add up to 50. Problem number 4. In a survey of 700 voters, the ratio of men to women taking part was 17 to 18. If I add 17 and 18, it does not make 700. So the common ratio, the common factor x, has been canceled out. So ratio of men, 17x equals the number of men, and 18x equals the number of women. So together, 17x plus 18x has to equal the survey of 700 voters. So that's 35x equals 700. Divide by 35, and the common factor is 20. So 17 times 20, there were 340 men. And they wanted the number of women, 18 times 20, there was 360 women. Problem number 6. The perimeter of a rectangle is 68 feet. Find the dimensions of the rectangle with the ratio of the length to the width is 9 to 8. 9 plus half the perimeter would be 34, and 9 plus 8 does not equal 34. So the common factor x has been canceled out. So 9x equals the length and 8x equals the width. So 9x plus 8x has to equal 34. 17x equals 34. Collecting like terms, divide by 17. And the common factor is 2. So the length is 9 times 2, which is 18. And the width is 8 times 2, which is 16. Problem number 8, the measures of the angles of a triangle are in the ratio of 1 to 2 to 3. Find the measures of the angles. Well, the sum of the angles of a triangle equal 180 degrees. And if the ratio is 1 to 2 to 3, 1 plus 2 plus 3 does not make 180, so the common factor has been canceled out. So x equals your common factor. The smallest angle is 1x. The next angle is 2x, the ratio is 1 to 2 to 3. And the last angle, or the largest angle, 3x equals the largest angle. And together, if you add these up, 1x plus 2x plus 3x, that's 6x. They have to add up to 180 degrees. Divide by 6, and the common factor is 30. So 1 times 30, the smallest angle is 30 degrees. 2 times 30, the next angle is 60 degrees, and 3 times 30, the largest angle is 90 degrees, and they add up to 180. And the last problem, number 10. A new alloy is made by mixing 8 parts of iron, 3 parts of zinc, and 1 part of tungsten. How much of each metal is needed to make 420 cubic meters of the alloy? Well, 8 plus 3 plus 1 does not make 420. So x is the common factor. 8x equals the amount of iron. 3x equals zinc, and x equals tungsten. So if I add those, I get 12x equals 420. And divide by 12. So x equals, goes in 3 times 36, 5 times. So 8 times 35 would be 280 for the iron, and 3 times 35 is 105 cubic meters of the zinc, and just 35 cubic meters of the tungsten. That concludes the evens. Be sure and check the answers to the odds in the back of the book.